Welcome to episode 2 of Developer Direct. This is David I, and with me here is Anders Olsen.
Hello.
And Al Manarino's on the line.
Hello.
And we also have a very special guest, Marco Cantu, who's over in Piacenza, Italy with well, maybe he's back. He had a barking dog he had to mute.
Yeah, no, the dog is quiet now. The dog will bark again, but whatever.
Excellent.
It's part of being live.
Yep, it's all live. And if you want to take part, you can join in the chat on Twitter. Use the hashtag EMBTDD. And if you want to send messages to the Twitter feed, at EMBTD Direct is the ID on Twitter. And we'll be monitoring that. So if you have interesting links to share or notes or other kinds of things, questions, you can post things all over the place. You can send an email to developerdirect.online@embarcadero.com at any time, day or night. And there are a lot of us that will see those emails and respond to you. It could be salespeople responding or members of the worldwide Developer Direct team. And I'm hearing an echo, so somebody's got a speaker on somewhere. Oh, that was that Anders Olsen guy. So those are ways to take part. Twitter's a great way. You can also use the Q&A area of the GoToWebinar. Sandro has mentioned when will XE4 be available in Brazil. Well, XE4 is available worldwide, Sandro. I mean, it's on the shop sites. It's available through all our partners and resellers. So just in Brazil, just contact the office in Sao Paulo, and we ship to the trials are there. You'll see the links in a moment, the instant trials. Today's focus is on multi-device enterprise, talking about enterprise development, enterprise infrastructures, and how you can use our products to connect into those infrastructures, whether it's databases or services or clouds or whatever it might be. And so we'll be talking a lot about that today. And here's the rest of the schedule for the remainder of Q2 here for the U.S. and Canada, but Sandra in Brazil. It's great to have you on all of the Americas again as well. So multi-device enterprise next week, from desktop to multi-device, looking at user experience and looking at your user interface. If you have a desktop application, how you can move that to multi-device, move that to iOS, and so on. And then the rest of the schedule's there. Just quick agenda. We're going to do a couple of news items. Each week we'll give you some of the latest news, and then we'll move into the topic area and lots of demonstrations, conversation, Q&A, all of that. So stay tuned with us. A couple items, I guess, this week. The biggest news, probably the news that ran over any other news that might have happened, is that RAD Studio XE4, Delphi XE4, and C++ Builder XE4 were announced on Monday, and also the downloads, the trial downloads, the registered user downloads. If you're on maintenance, you got messages, go grab them. The shop sites went live all over the world. So here's links to press release and articles. You'll see articles all on EDN. Just go to EDN and click the articles link, go to the Delphi community, the C++ Builder community, and you'll see all sorts of articles. Marco Cantu also has a white paper specific for Delphi developers about the Delphi language for mobile development and enhancements to the language. Marco, maybe just a couple words about that white paper and maybe a couple highlights. I know Tim Anderson did a couple quick highlights about the enhancements in the mobile compiler.
Yeah, there are a couple of areas. The most relevant one is certainly support for automatic reference counting, or ARC, and that's covered quite extensively in the paper. That's a very significant feature. Basically works like interface reference count used to work, but it's for all objects, and it actually has a bunch of extra features like the concept of weak references and a few more that are worth looking into. The other area is mostly focused on strings management, because we have kind of trimmed down the 20 or so string types that are available on the Windows version of Delphi, and that honestly don't make that much sense to keep around forever. So there's a little bit of trimming. There are some alternative coding styles and a few changes around strings that actually some of those are also available on the Win32 side as an option, like using the new tstring helper and other features.
Great. So does that mean I don't have to free up anything anymore if I create it?
Well, yeah, the idea you just create an object, use it, and when it's gone, it's gone. Now, that works in the simple scenarios. In the more complex scenarios, you have to make sure you're doing the right things. For example, when you have two objects referencing one to the other, they'll like remain in memory forever unless one of the references is a weak reference, so a reference that doesn't actually increase the reference count. And there are other scenarios. There are times you really want to kill an object right away, or at least execute the destructor to release external resources. And so there is a way to do that that's new to the language as well.
Okay. And again, this part for now is only in the Delphi iOS compiler, right?
Yeah, that's only for Delphi iOS compiler. There is some support in the emulator, in the compiler for the emulator, because of course you want the two to work the same way, but not for the desktop, Windows and Mac compilers.
At least for now.
Yeah, for now. Well, we'll see how and when to introduce it.
Okay. And then the other thing that shipped and is available as part of XE4 is what we're calling IB Lite. IB Lite is InterBase that can get statically linked into your iOS application. We've had since previous version IB to go, which is InterBase in a DLL on Windows and a dilib on Macintosh. And then, of course, we have our InterBase desktop, developer, and server editions. So a new edition called IB Lite, and there'll be more information coming out about IB Lite. It's there today, and there's articles and videos. I think Al and maybe Anders might show some things. We've got a code snippet video that talks about it as well. So and a snippet example. And when you purchase IB Lite, you get a deployment license for an application. Well, you get a key which allows you to go and get licenses for IB Lite to put in your applications. And so you can deploy an IB Lite application, have as many users as they want use it. You just need to go and get an IB Lite key for each app that you build and give to people. So it's a pretty simple process, and it's all part of having XE4, all the editions of RAD Studio XE4 or the Delphi XE4 Professional with mobile and above. So if you have it, you have it. And how much are IB Lite keys? The price, there's no price. It's included in your purchase of RAD Studio XE4 and Delphi XE4 Professional with the mobile add-in, or Delphi 4 Enterprise and above, depending on Delphi XE4 Enterprise and above, depending on which product you buy. So there's no cost for IB Lite keys. It's built into purchasing the RAD Studio or Delphi XE4 mobile pack, or Delphi Enterprise, Delphi 4 XE4 Enterprise and above. So great questions, Alan. Just go and build iOS applications with IB Lite and deliver them to your customers and your users. Sorry about that. Also on Monday, the trials appeared, as well as the shop sites where you can purchase. There's two different trials that we have. We have the traditional trial where you download a starting app and start it up, and then it pulls down all the other pieces that are required, and then you go through a full installation. And that takes, well, it depends on your internet connection. It depends on how fast your hard disk drive is. It could take an hour. It could take more. We also have a beta test of our instant trial, and what the instant trial does is it uses our AppWave browser, and I did it myself on a slower computer, and what happens is you load AppWave browser, and it starts the AppWave edition of XE4 RAD Studio Architect trial, and it then starts loading up in a prefetch mode the pieces of the IDE and the libraries and everything else you need to get started and do something. So in about 10 minutes time, the splash screen shows up, at least on my slower Dell notebook. By 11 minutes, I could build a VCL application, a FireMonkey HD application for Windows, and then I wanted to try and build a a mobile application, and it took another 3 or 4 minutes after that. So by 15 minutes, I had built a VCL application, a FireMonkey Windows and Mac application, and I could build a FireMonkey iOS Delphi application. And then there's this little window on the bottom that says it's fetching all the other parts of the instant trial for offline use. So it might go for another hour or so, pulling the rest of the bits that it needs. But you can be up and running and building your first application in 11 minutes from the start of using the instant trial. So that's not pretty bad. That's not bad at all versus, waiting for an hour or so to get the complete trial. So you might check out instant trial versus the other trial. Let's see. Let's see. Sriram is saying about IB Lite, can we also mention that you just developed for InterBase to Go and deploy to Windows, Mac, and iOS? InterBase to Go and IB Lite share the same development framework and libraries. Okay. So InterBase to Go is the non-free version option. And then when you deploy, if you deploy an IB Lite for iOS, that's the free option. And there's no change required in using IB Lite and InterBase to Go in your projects. The only difference is the license file that you deploy. Thanks for that, Sriram. Oh, I see. Elaine is on, and Sriram was typing on her computer. Okay, I didn't. That's her last other name. Okay. I keep getting confused. The other news quickly is FireDAC exe4 is available. And so you just find FireDAC exe4 on your registered user download page, or you can go and purchase it from the shop site as an add-on pack. But if you're an enterprise and above customer, just as an exe3 FireDAC enterprise and above customers, you can download FireDAC from Reg User. Now there's an exe4 build, which has the compiled packages for exe4 and the source code that compiles the right packages for you for FireDAC exe4. So go and get that from the registered user download page. There's lots of oh, I see. Sriram's saying why it says Elaine. Okay. There's lots of additional live events happening. I'm going to be doing a 2-day programming workshop in Denmark next Tuesday and Wednesday in beautiful Nyborg. Hopefully there's no Borg people there, Borg things there. And then I'm going to be at the launch in London next Thursday, in London, wherever that is. And there's launches. I think Pavel was in Oslo, and other people are in other cities all over the world. Oh, Tokyo was on Tuesday. They had a huge crowd in Tokyo. So lots of events. Just go to the Embarcadero News events page and you'll get to it. So a couple of quick slides, then we'll get to a lot of demos so we don't run for 27,000 hours here. Today's episode is all about multi-device enterprise. Andrew's is taking pictures, I think. Oh gosh, it's always backlit when he shoots this way. You got to go be on this side and shoot this way. Anyway, using your enterprise data in your mobile strategy. So if you've got SQL databases, if you've got SOAP servers, if you've got REST servers, if you've got other kinds of web services, you can connect to all of those things via the functionality in exe4, whether it's, again, database access, multi-tier access, and so on. So how can Delphi and C++ Parallel help you? Well, first you have to think about what devices you have that you need to build apps for. And of course, there's lots of different languages and architectures for using on different devices. We have our HTML5 builder, which uses the HTML5 markup language plus CSS3 plus JavaScript to build client mobile, server mobile, client-server applications, all using HTML, JavaScript, jQuery mobile, and even the PHP language on the server side if you want to. Can connect to data snap servers and other things. And all of that then can be packaged up for different platforms to run on Windows, to run on servers, and in whatever browser you want. It can also it uses the phone gap technology to package up your application for different smartphones, and those are listed on the phone gap site to iOS, Windows Phone, BlackBerry, Android, Symbian, WebOS. I think those are the 6, and there may be some other ones. So that's one approach. For us, we're focused on true native, and targeting different devices and desktop systems. And then you also have to think in terms of what kinds of services in your enterprise or in your customers' enterprises that they need to connect to, what kind of SQL database it is, where it's running, Are they using some web services of some kind? Are they putting some of the functionality and data in the cloud, like Amazon and Azure? So lots of different data sources and services to think about. The second area has to do with when you're building network-based systems, when you're building device-based systems, desktop-based systems, if you're using a public cloud, maybe a private cloud, how do you secure everything? So being able to secure the transmission of data and method calls back and forth, making sure that you have the right secure infrastructure in the operating systems with the latest patches and whatever you're using for infrastructure, for encryptions possibly, or for line level encryption, over the wire encryption. There's lots of things to think about. And now when you're starting to think about having mobile devices connected into an infrastructure, what do you have to do there as well? And so again, how can we help you in a multi-device, true native, on-device rapid prototyping application development world? So we've been doing enterprise connectivity for years in our products, and adding the mobile and adding multi-tier to all of this. We're just building on top of the same infrastructure that we've been working with and adding capabilities over time as well. So adding cloud services for Amazon and Azure, adding the DataSnap multi-tier technology with the ability to encrypt the data and metadata and the method calls and parameters that are going back and forth. Giving you access to the hardware and the operating system that will assist you as well in getting to data services and getting to other systems. So today for C++, it's Win3264 and Mac, and Delphi the same. And now, as of Monday, Delphi iOS XE4. Android, we're still working on for this year, and C++, iOS and Android working on for this year as well. So FireDAC and DB-Express and ADO for talking to different SQL databases. On the devices, you'll find SQLite as a lightweight SQL engine running on iOS and on Android. And now with IB Lite, also on iOS, you have choice there for a database. In the case of IB Lite, it's the full InterBase SQL engine. The capabilities, transactions, all of that is built in IB Lite. So it gives you much more functionality above SQLite. Of course, SQLite is there, but IB Lite is very easy to be involved in your application development. And here's just a structural diagram. The whole key here is you write it once, whether you use Delphi or C++, you use FireMonkey and the lower level runtime library and sensor and device frameworks that we give you. And then you just start your project, build it, compile it for Win32. Take the same project, compile it for Win64. Take the same project, compile it for OS X. And for Delphi, take your same project, create a mobile version of that project, use the exact same source code, the exact same forms, the exact same components, and compile it for iOS. And that'll be the same today and in the future for C++ as new devices like Android, BlackBerry, maybe, whatever. And also, if we go further into the future, apps are being built for all sorts of other devices. Inside of cars, Ford and General Motors both have developer programs with APIs and SDKs for building apps that can be downloaded into your car if you want to. Maybe you have to sit there and say, well, how do I debug that? Well, let's drive along. Parrot has a replacement in-dashboard system, which just like you would put your radio or your CD player with radio in your dashboard, this is a replacement dashboard that has a display and it runs apps. There's been all these speculations about an iPhone watch, an Apple Watch, a Microsoft Watch, and so on. So we're seeing today in our handheld smartphones and our tablets the use of apps and the ability for developers to build apps, often with ARM processor, sometimes with Atom processor from Intel. But you're going to see more and more of this in our TV sets, watches, in-dash systems, in-car systems, home automation systems, and we're working on demos and tests so that we can make sure that you can use your Delphi and C++ for all these devices, not only today, but into the future as well. And it's all about something you already know. If you're using our products, you say File New, you're in the IDE, you drag and drop components, you activate them, set the properties, maybe you write a few lines of code, and you can test your application. You can see data live at design time, and then you can build and deploy your application, debug it on a remote device, or debug it on your Windows desktop, all of that, you're building the user interface, prototyping it. You can even use the prototype bind source to prototype your data set. And then you're not only working with data, but you're testing and showing your user the user interface, letting them play with it. And then once you're done, the same executable they were playing with becomes your deployment app. That's pretty cool and pretty simple. And I did a blog on Monday, and you can go back to that if you want. The original Delphi 1 ad, way back in 1995, had from prototype to executable. In that case, it was a .exe because it was 16-bit Windows. But from prototype to app, from prototype to application, from inspiration to application. So that's what we've been doing for all these years, and now we're just doing it at an even higher level with more components, more abstraction layers to make it simpler for you to do complex development, to hook into enterprise infrastructures, databases, multi-tiers, and so on. Just a little note again, FireDAC is right there. FireDAC is for Windows and Mac and iOS for Delphi. We also still have DB Express that runs on Windows and Mac and iOS, but the future for us is all about using FireDAC. It gives you access to more databases and across more platforms. So that is the future, but again, you can still use DB Express if you've built applications using those. DB Express is still around. For multi-tier development, DataSnap servers, you can connect from iOS device to a DataSnap server. You can connect from iOS to your database, connect from iOS to a SOAP server running somewhere to a DataSnap server. So all the multi-tier development, cloud development you've been doing, you can also connect into that from Delphi on iOS, and then eventually on Android and C++ on all of that as well. And that's just a quick diagram that just talks about all the different ways, either through SOAP or REST calls, that you can get from devices into DataSnap. And then you can get to IB Lite or SQLite using FireDAC on the device as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Marco first, because for Marco it's about 7:25 p.m. Central European time, right?
Okay, so well, that's in fact my time. So before we get to this device, this is a very simple demo. I'm not going to go through all of the steps because it takes a while, but just wanted to give you a feeling, because it's kind of a real-world scenario for mobile development. So the starting point is this. This is a very old VCL application. And all it does, it will load some data from, in this case, a local table, but could be any database that your company has. And the goal of this program is to publish your internal database data to an Azure table. In this case, the data is a menu with a bunch of different pizzas. So not only we are creating a row object, which is like a database record, populating it, and then calling insert entity to add that entity or record into this Azure table. But the other thing I'm doing here, I'm grabbing an image for one of the an image field on the database and publish on the blob service, on the file sharing service, again part of Azure, the JPEG file for that image. So the data, the text or numeric data is sent to the table. The binary data is actually published separately on the blob service. And so this application, we could even run it now that it's very relevant. I mean, there are a bunch of pizzas, and then I've already published each of these onto Azure. So now that I have some data, and the reason for publishing onto Azure is that if I don't have a large infrastructure of myself, letting users and even more complicated mobile users hook to my business data would be complicated. So this is like the menu of my pizza, something I can publish and make available, and then create a hook so client applications, including the mobile applications, can actually read into the data. So in fact, if we go to Reflector, what I have here is, actually there are two things you can see on screen. One is the simulator, but the second, if it works, The second is my physical device. And on this device, I've installed a client for that table. The client uses the same Azure components and almost the same source code. The source code to manage the Azure table is practically identical from a VCL, FireMonkey, or client application. And okay, now the dog is barking. And I can get for the pizzas, and I get this list of pizzas that I've published. And if I select one, let's go for the 4-cheese pizza, I'm actually getting the image from the service. And so I can publish this information, the user can navigate through the pizzas, and then what the user can do, actually can place an order. And again, given I don't have a specific infrastructure ready to use, I'm posting the order on the Azure service as well. So if we get back to Delphi and I open, of course, it's 2 up and above, file, close all, recent iPizza menu. So this is the client app, and the client application uses, again, the Azure connector info, and again, simply does query entities to get the list of the pizzas. And then down for each individual, when you click on one item, it will just query the entity for the specific item using the item ID. Now, when we hit the publish button, or the order pizza button, which is in the second page here, okay, this is actually the code. So when you click on the button, I'm placing an order on another Azure table. So you don't have really to have your own infrastructure. Azure or Amazon will work equally, are extremely cheap to use. So what I can do, I'm placing my order, and what I'm doing for the order, I'm using one of the sensors, the location sensor component, and posting also the latitude and longitude of the user. So once this is done, what happens is that I can actually create a client application that fetches the information in a standard way, or I can even create, and this is a VCL app that hosts a Google map with the most recent pizza orders. I think the last one should actually be this one. So I can fetch the data, get back all of the information in this client data set, and then if I hit show map, it will refresh the map. So these are orders I made last week while I was in California. But actually, if we go back all the way throughout the world, and it takes a little to get back to Italy, these are other orders that I've done from my current location. So hopefully this should be the order that I just did. So again, it's just a way of using hosting support.
There it is. We're getting hungry over here.
Yeah, from a cloud service, and not having to roll out your own infrastructure, but just piggybacking on something that's easily available and will scale with your application. I think having support, I mean, we do have the more traditional database support for local tables, for multi-tier tables, but having the ability to hook to cloud services to make your application scalable with very little cost, I think that's very relevant.
Yeah, no, thanks, Marco, for that. And again, there were some questions that were coming up about FireDAC and who gets FireDAC. If you're an enterprise and above, and you can feel free, Marco, to chime in too. If you have enterprise and above editions of either exe3 and or exe4, you can just go to the registered user download page and download FireDAC exe4, right?
Yes, that's exact. And the other option is if you are on professional version with mobile, either because you bought it or because you have RAD Studio Professional, then you have a feature-limited version of FireDAC that works on iOS but doesn't work on Windows and Mac. And of course, that version only has the driver for the database is supporting on iOS, which is InterBase and SQLite.
Okay. So if they want the full Fire DAC, either if you have Enterprise and above, you get the full Fire DAC for all platforms that are supported, and or you can buy the Fire DAC product as an add-on if you have.
Yes. And again, if you buy the product as an add-on, you get the full feature on all platforms.
Across everything, right.
Okay.
So again,
okay.
Go ahead.
So hello again. My name's Al Manarino. I'm one of the Embarcadero systems engineers. So welcome to this Developer Direct session. So for those of you who saw the last session, I walked you through these two iOS database access applications. So the top one was using an embedded InterBase database, and the bottom one is using a Delphi iOS client that was connecting to a remote DataSnap server to access a remote SQL database. So that's what we did last week. So you can watch the replay video to see what that was about. So for today, I want to quickly walk you through the steps to browse data managed by an InterBase IB Lite and or InterBase to go database on your iOS device. And we're going to do that through the DB Express framework. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with DB Express, it's this very fast database access framework that's written in Delphi. So RAD Studio provides drivers for most of the major databases, such as InterBase, Oracle, DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, Firebird, SQLite, and ODBC. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, there are two on this iOS platform. DB Express supports two databases as embedded databases. One is our own InterBase IB Lite or to go, and the other one is SQLite. And both of these databases can run on the iOS devices. For these other databases like Oracle or MS SQL, you need to at least have a client library. So on the Windows platform, the client library is provided as a DLL to connect to. Therefore, you need to develop applications, using middle-tier technology such as DataSnap to be able to connect your iOS device to these other types of databases like Oracle or DB2. And throughout all of this, we're going to use Visual Live bindings to help us rapidly create these applications. So my plan is, as quickly as I can, just to walk you through this. So here we are in RAD Studio XE4. I'm going to start with a new FireMonkey mobile application. I'm going to make it a blank application. Right. The first thing I want to do is drop a list box on here. I'm going to use a list box to display the values from the InterBase database. So all of you who are familiar with Delphi, this is all familiar. We're doing nothing new so far. To this list box, I'm going to align its property to the client. Now we have these great default item styles. I want to set its default item style to be bottom detail. Now on this list box, I want to add a few more items. I want to add a list box header, and I want to add a search bar. And to the list box, we want to add a label for the title. And for this label, I want to align it also to the client. I want its style lookup, because it's iOS. We have all these great style lookups to apply. So for this label on my header, I want it to be a tool label. The text I put on there, I want it to be centered. And I'm going to make this my FishFacts demo, because there's never enough FishFacts apps that can be created. So now we have that done. So pretty much that takes care of the user interface. So now we're going to take care of the database connection. And for that, under DB Express, we are going to use, first we're going to use a SQL connection. So on here, we'll drop a SQL connection. So to this SQL connection, we're going to connect it to our InterBase database. So for the driver here, you'll see for SQL connection, all the drivers are supported. In our case, we're going to use IB Lite as the driver. To the parameters, we're going to set the database value. So for a property called database, to make my life easier, I think I already have it set. Let's do it this way. Save me some typing. I'm going to grab this database and drop it as my database name. So set it there, and it gets set here also. So that's done. And we don't want people to have to be logging in with the ID and password, so I'm going to set login prompt to be false. So that part's all done. And just to make sure I can actually connect and my license key is valid, I'm going to set connected to be true. So that worked fine. If I had any errors with my connection, like can't find my license key or unable to connect, and then we would have to figure out what's going on there. Next, from DB Express, I'm going to drop a SQL data set onto the list box. And for the SQL data set, I'm going to set its SQL connection to our SQL connection. To the command text, this is the query we're going to run. And just to save myself some typing, I'm going to select here. And that will be my query. And that goes there. And just to make sure everything's working fine, set active to be true. So that's great. So now we're going to use the power of live bindings to take items from the database and populate items onto the list box. So bring up my live bindings designer. So what's important for me here is I want the common name of my database to be put into the item text of my list box. And I want the species name to be put into the detail of my list box. So the good news is at design time, we actually see the data coming up there. So that's also pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much that. So we have our user interface set, we have our database connection set. We're ready to deploy this application to our iOS device. So now to deploy this to the iOS device, it needs three things. It's going to need my InterBase IB Lite license key, and as David mentioned, it's a free license key, and no charge to deploy it. We also want to give it our DB Express driver and the actual InterBase database we're going to use. So to do that, it's on the project deployment. We bring up our add feature files. Say to this application, I want to deploy to my iOS device or my iOS simulator. I'm going to send it to both places. So here you see where you can add your IB Lite license key or your IB to go license key. Here we see them as text files, but let's say you're a VAR or a reseller and we gave you a slip file instead, which I have in my case. I'm going to manually add them. We want to add our DB Express driver also to my simulator. So that's all done. And you see they get populated here. And the last and final thing I want to do, well, two things. I want to manually add my two slip files. And for them, they come from InterBase redistribution. So I need to manually add my two slip files. So in my case, I may want to use both IB Lite and IB to go. So I'm going to add them both just to show you how that works. Now pathing on an iOS device and Windows works differently. So we need to physically tell it where these license files exist. So for the license file, they need to be in this location. So for my two slip files, when they go onto the iOS device, I want it to go here, and the other slip file, put it there. And the last and final thing I need to add is the actual InterBase file that I want to get embedded onto my iOS device. And that will be the DB demos database file that lives here. I'm going to manually add that. And that file is right here. DB demos, right here. And for that, on the iOS device, it physically needs to live at this location, Startup Documents. All right, we are done. So that's everything we need. Now we can go ahead and deploy this. So and one more thing. So we need to tell the iOS device where this DB demos file actually exists on the iOS device. And for that, I'm going to use the SQL connection component on its before connect. So here I'm going to tell it okay. Since I already set this, I don't need this. Well, the one thing we're missing is to tell. Oh, let's see what we got here. Okay. We got property. SQL connection, query. All right, it's all good. All right, so now this is all done. We can go ahead and deploy this thing. For those of you not familiar, we use Platform Assist on the iOS side. Just to make sure the connection is working, I can connect. So now when I build this here locally, it gets deployed out to my iOS device, and it lives right here. So when I launch this, this is the embedded InterBase database running on my iOS device. So that's all pretty cool. And what's great about this little search bar on it, without having to do any coding, I can say, find me all the redfish. Find me some bluefish. Find me some yellowfish. So that's all great. So that was a quick walkthrough on the steps required to manage data from an InterBase, IB Lite or IB to go on your iOS device using the DB Express framework.
David was asking, is there a recommended place to put files and database files and other kinds of files and pictures, whatever your application might load? And I had a typo. Remember, it's iOS, just like Mac, sort of based on, well, mock operating system based on Unix ideas. So the directories are case sensitive, and so it's startup with a capital S and a capital U / documents with a capital D, which is what Al showed when he was deploying the files out. You'll see some of that when you build an iOS mobile Delphi application, and you go into the project deployment and look at it, you'll see the files that you're pulling on the left, and then there's that column in the middle. There it is there, where you either it's // which means it's coming from where your application, where it is, or you can, the normal place to put other stuff is in startup documents. Remember, capital S, capital U, capital D, and startup documents, and then whatever subdirectories underneath startup. You could also put it in, I guess, in startup itself. But startup
Correct.
Documents is where people normally put things. And Anders, I think your microphone is on.
All right.
There were some other questions about downloads, registered user downloads, maintenance, all those things, and we've answered those in the Q&A log. And if you can't find the stuff that you're supposed to be getting, either automagically or in the reg user download page, and you're on maintenance, contact, or you're trying to figure out contact sales, if you're on maintenance, there's usually an email address, a phone number that you can contact as part of your maintenance agreement. You should have been given that kind of stuff, or just contact an Embarcadero office or reseller partner near you, and we'll figure it out. Make sure you get all the stuff that you're supposed to get. So Anders, over to you. And thank you, Al, very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Al. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about a regular expression SOAP service that I believe Pavel in Europe built. So he has a DataSnap server here, a REST-based, a SOAP DataSnap server, where we have a WSDL HTML publish component here that makes sure that we have WSDL on the web. We can also go here and actually look at his SOAP implementation, or SOAP interface, sorry. So he has a iReg expressions interface where he has two methods, isMatch and isValid email address. We can, of course, look at the parameters here as well. We pass in a string, two strings here. We pass in an email address to the isValid email address. We can look at the WSDL if we prefer that and see the whole WSDL here as well. So this is sitting on a server in the Amazon cloud. So we're now going to go to a mobile client and connect to that. So here's my mobile client. Very simple interface. I just have a toolbar with a label on it that says regular expressions. I have a edit box where I put in an email address, and then I hit the button to query the DataSnap server, or the SOAP server in this case, if it is a valid email address or not. So I use this interface and I use the method. So if we click on here and drill into it, we can see that it's looking at the iReg expressions 1 here, which is generated for us. We have the isValid email address method. And here are the URLs. Here's the SOAP URL. Here's the WSDL URL. And we use a HTTP Rio component to hook up to the SOAP server. We set the location, we set the service, and we set the port. And isValid email address is on this side right here on the server side. So isValid email simply sets up a regular expression that figures out whether an email address is valid. Format-wise, of course, it's not going to figure out whether there's actually going to be a mailbox on the other side. It's only making sure that there's a @ sign and there's valid characters and there's a properly formatted email address, really. So if we run this on the simulator first here. Oops. Oh, that's what I get for changing stuff last minute. Huh? Okay, let's go ahead and run that on the simulator. It's already running, but it's going to restart here on the simulator here. Okay, so let's go ahead and put an incorrect email address first, and let's see if I get something back. Okay, it says info@acme is not a valid email address. But if I put .com, then I get back, okay, it's a valid email address. I can do .co.uk. Is this a valid email address? Okay, it's a valid email address. I can go ahead and run this on my device by clicking there and simply go ahead and run. on the device. I have a reflector over here. Also here, it's been previously deployed, but it's going to redeploy it and launch it on my device.
And again, we use reflector so we can project the device through the Mac desktop rather than having to hold it up to an external camera.
Yeah.
And it runs over AirPlay, which is Apple's system for like Apple TV.
If I double click on my home button, I'll actually see it here
there
that I'm mirroring on my MacBook here.
Yeah.
So let's see what's going on here. It's probably still chewing and deploying over maybe over wireless here.
Yeah, and people look at the message window. That's where the client call, PA client calls happen. There it is on the device.
So here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, put in an invalid email address, hit the button, and it gets back in not valid. I put in .co.uk and hit, and there we go. That's a valid email address. So that's a very simple demo of how you can write a mobile client, in this case iOS, for an existing SOAP server.
Yeah, excellent.
So the next thing we're going to take a look at is, sure, we'll go ahead and save that, is an application that's very much in progress of being written here, in process of being written, I should say. This is a weather app. We've got a couple of tabs here. So we have, my home screen is probably going to change. This is just a memo that will show us some debug info and stuff like that as we're pulling the XML down from a SOAP server. And we get our forecast. This is a lineup of the forecast. We're going to have high, low temperatures. We're going to have precipitation. We're going to have icons representing the current or the forecasted weather predictions. We're going to have today, tomorrow, then day 3, 4, and 5 on this page. And settings, we're going to be able to have settings sometime in the future. We have an HTTP Rio component that's going to go after the web service we're interested in. And in this case, it's going to be the NOAA Weather Web Service. It's at graphical.weather.gov/XML. Okay, so that's the National Digital Forecast Database and their SOAP web service. So there's a lot of documentation on here that you may or may not want to look at, just explaining all the different packets that are going back and forth. There's a test interface that we can put in here. Let's go with Scotts Valley so we get similar values to what I'm going to get in my app. So we're going to go ahead and put in the latitude and longitude of Scotts Valley, California. We are going to request a weather at a glance, which is what I'm doing in my app. We do a submit. We get back an XML packet here that has a lot of different stuff in it. It has a various amounts of time layouts. That is, this one's tonight, tomorrow night, Sunday night, Monday night, etc. Here's one that's looks like it's every 3rd hour over the next 5 or 6 days, maybe 7. This one's every hour, and this, of course, corresponds then later on to various different things. So here we have maximum temperatures in Fahrenheit, because that's what we requested. We could have requested in Celsius as well. Here's the time layout that it matches to. So this is going to be the high temperatures daily for 7 days.
Wow, 82. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. 77 today, 81 tomorrow, 82 the next day. Here are the daily low temperatures. It uses a different time layout because it's going to be probably 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Local time. Then this one is cloud cover amount. We see that we have almost no clouds until we get a little later in the week. Again, a third time layout here. Hazard conditions, none here. Weather conditions. It looks like there's no weather conditions. That's because it's clear. So this is the definition of sunny weather. in this case. Then we'll get a bunch of icons back, which are useful for telling us whether it's rainy, whether it's foggy, et cetera, et cetera. I'm actually not using these particular icons in this case. I'm using my own icons, or actually they're created by one of our icon graphics people. Okay, so what do we do here? We click on the lookup button, and I apologize for the lots of commented out code and maybe ugly code here. Like I said, this is in progress. So first of all, we figure out a little bit of setup. What are the actual day names of the day past tomorrow? So we have today, tomorrow, and day 3, 4, and 5. After that, we go ahead and, in this case, we have to figure out, given a zip code, we have to figure out what area is that in lat long. So the NOAA web service actually tells us that. After that, we go ahead and request the data itself, the weather data right here. So we'll go ahead and request that. We're going to request data from 12 hours ago up to 5 hours, 5 days from now. Okay, we go ahead and get the temperatures. In this case, the low ones. We get the high ones. You see we have commented out stuff here for getting hourly temperatures. We can get chance of precipitation. We do that here. All of these things are using the XML and SOAP wrappers that we get. So we get a document here that we drill into and get the probability of precipitation. We get the time layouts here, various different things that we're doing throughout here. And we're setting it up internally. Whoops. Finally, we get down to here where we actually plug in the low and high temps that we received. I haven't added code to actually parse out the precipitation yet. That will be in the future as soon as possible. We loop through the conditions, and we figure out what we're getting. For my debug, I put out the start time and end time for that condition. I put out the weather type, the intensity, and the coverage, the cloud coverage. Then we go ahead and set up the icons in my graphical GUI view of the screen on the second tab. So here I pick sunny, rainy, slight rain, stormy, snowy, depending on what the conditions are. So the conditions that come back are actually rain, spray, drizzle, storm, hail, blowing something. It could be blowing snow, could be blowing sand, could be blowing other different conditions.
Where's the gloom of night? Sorry. That's the U.S. Postal Service designation. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or sleet.
Here's my comment. Here's just my comments for that. So if we go ahead and run this, I'll go ahead and run it on the simulator because it's fast.
Nick Andrews said he's still working on this app, but then eventually it'll appear as one of our showcase applications. Yeah,
I'll put it in Code Central, a blog about it, etc.
Probably it'll appear on if it's accepted by Apple on the App Store.
Right now I'm a little bit concerned of the time it's taking to actually get the stuff, but you never know.
But your Andrews analog clock, which is built in XE4, is up in the store.
That's correct.
And also the U.S. Capitals Trivia app is up in the store as well. That's built in XE4 and FireMonkey.
Yeah. So here we see that it took about 4 seconds to translate the zip code to an area. We got the weather data. We get the debug version of all the conditions here, and then we get to the end, right? And my forecast is all set up. So I've got low 45. That was probably last night, and a high of 77 today.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we can go and
this reminder, it was popped up there. If you're sitting in the ID, it's just a reminder to tell you, go look at your Mac or go look at your device, this little thing here. Yeah, and if you don't like it popping up, just check the little checkbox saying, don't show me this again. But it's there to remind you that you targeted a different device.
So I can go ahead and say Scotts Valley, California in here just to verify a little bit. It's going to be slightly different because we're okay, and then I have to say what's here to get there's my coordinates like we had before. I think I put in weather in here. Weather. So here we go. 46 low and 76 low. 76 high. So what did I have? I have 45 and 77. Close enough. So they're using a different model than the National Weather Service does. This may be adjusted for humidity, wind speed, and all that kind of stuff. You see on the next day it's 80 and 49. What did I have? I had 81 and 44. So maybe it's perceived temperature that I have here. Maybe it's windy tomorrow night. I don't know. But this is the data that I do get back from that web service. And of course, there's lots and lots and lots of weather forecasting services. This happens to be one that is free and that anybody can use. I believe it's limited in the number of requests, but I've certainly done hundreds of requests in one day, and it's still giving me data. So there we go. That is another example of using SOAP and XML in a mobile application.
Excellent, Anders. That's really good. Again, SOAP,
very nice.
But you can also use as you saw with Marco Cloud and FireDAC. We don't have an example today, but there was stuff showed in the launch webinars, and we'll have and then we'll have more code snippets and more videos and more developer direct sessions to come. So
yeah, and
lots of things you can do. Go ahead, Andrew.
Here it is on the iPad, just to show you that as well.
Too much sun. Let's get some rain. We need rain in California.
Yes,
very much.
That's
at all.
For sure.
At all. 1 inch in January and the partial inch, I think, at the end of March and early April. Of course, middle of the United States got tons of rain, and Colorado's still getting snow. They had 3 snowouts at the Denver, the Rockies, Colorado Rockies baseball games or whatever this past week or so.
Yep.
So it just depends on where you are in the world, or here in the U.S. or Canada, what kind of weather you're getting. We answered a few other questions along the way. It was mostly about things like, when are we going to start seeing more of the third-party components being updated for XE4 and the packages, and we've all the tech partners that we have been involved in this release even before XE3, in some cases on briefing basis. So you expect to see those things appearing. As far as who will put their things on iOS, that's go and talk to your partners. TMS software has been supported XE2 with the FireMonkey that was done the free Pascal. So I expect I'll have to check their site that they've probably already, or they're very close to shipping iOS versions. We have T-Chart Lite, which is in the product. So from the Stima software, T-Chart Lite works on iOS, works on Mac, works on Windows 32 and 64. There's even T-Chart for HTML5 Builder. So it's across all the things in RAD Studio, and works with C++ Builder on the platform supported. So there, I know, of course, Project India is included. So if you need to talk low level to a REST server or to something else, you can do that. DB Express and FireDAC for getting at SQL databases. So lots of ways to get to enterprise infrastructure from not only desktops, but mobile with Delphi for now. So lots of ways to get back. Let me change back to my screen. Sorry, not that screen. The other Anders, which I had a problem with the last time. There were 3 Anders, I think it was, on the product launch webinar.
Oh, there you go.
And I didn't know what was going on. Maybe that was last Friday. I didn't know which Anders screen to turn on. A couple other questions along the way had to do with, let's see, Alan asked TMS, and they were just about to ship their XE4 version of FireMonkey components. Great. And Lewis reported, I'll pass this along to Serena and Dave Wilhelm, that there's an error in the capital of Kansas is Topeka, not Wichita. So we'll have to pass that on to Dave and Serena to have yet another update to the U.S. states and capitals trivia app built in Delphi and FireMonkey.
Oh, in this case, data error, huh?
Yeah, it's just the underlying data. Now, there has been an update recently, a couple days ago. I don't know if they fixed some other things. There were a couple bugs and so on.
Yep.
I'm not sure if they updated the data. And then Ilya's asking, this same weather application run on Windows and OS 10 after recompile, right?
You can make UIs for that as well. Yes. Yeah.
What I did is, if you go to the IDE, when you first start the XE4 IDE, we've added a new page to the welcome page called Start Here. And in there is a video I did. It's about 6 minutes long to make sure, and takes you through, make sure your system is set up, shows you how to make sure to install the PA client, that you've got Xcode and the command line tools. We need the command line tools specifically to do sandboxing and code signing if you want to get to a device, and also to have the simulator installed over on the Macintosh. That comes along with the whole Xcode. I'm using 4.6.2 Xcode. That's video 1 in the Start Here. Video 2, I just start with a mobile application, Delphi, and then I add to my project group a Delphi application, FireMonkey HD desktop application, and I delete the form and the unit, and I just add the form and the unit from the mobile application, and then I could set the target platforms for Win32, Win64, and OS 10. If you start a FireMonkey mobile application and you target the simulator and the device, you can also add target platform to a FireMonkey HD mobile desktop application for Win32. Anders, maybe I give you, I'm going to give your screen back. Oh, shoot. I have to change presenter to the other Anders. I'm going to show Anders' screen again. I think he's got something up probably if I let him.
Yeah, I was just going to deploy it here to my...
And just switch back, grab screen control. Or, yeah, I can't.
Sorry.
I can't show your screen. You have.
I understand.
This is Anders 2. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's got the PA server running underneath on his Mac. Go ahead.
You asked me if it runs on Windows and Mac as well, and it does. I actually have a Dave Wilhelm, who started this weather app, actually created a Win32 application as well for this. It does work as far as data retrieval and things like that. You see that it uses the same units, even for the UI in this case. But it's recommended that you create your own UI and, of course, style it for Windows as well, because it looks a little strange here. But if I look up the weather here in my Windows app, it'll pull down the data. And then it'll complain because it can't find the icons because I haven't set up the icon deployment correctly. For Windows, I've only paid attention to the iOS app side in this case, so the forecast page will be really bare because it errors out because of that exception. So it actually never finished setting up that. But you can see the XML data and all this stuff is coming back exactly as it were in the app. So before I release it, I'll probably make sure that the Windows and Mac UIs work as well. That's
part of a project. But notice down in your project 37 on your iOS that there's also Win32 target.
Yeah.
And part of that, the reason that can work is when you're in the IDE and you're designing an application, that's a Win32 IDE. So in order to have the components, like for the designer, for example, and be able to set components and properties and all the other things, you still have to have some equivalent components that you would use in the designer, even though the ultimate target's going to be compiled maybe for a simulator for Windows. So here
you see the 32-bit Windows target works exactly the same as the other one. So, but it's been separated out so that, oh wait, it wasn't actually running the right one. Let's see if it actually runs this one. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So again, the
same thing.
He's still working on it. Yeah.
Right.
So you can't, if you start a mobile project, you can't add 64 and Mac to that mobile project. You just create a new project in your group and use the same forms and the same code.
Yeah. So in this case, actually, it's going to be slightly different because I'm going to style it differently for Windows and Mac, and obviously I need to set up the deployment to a different location for the icons and things like that, probably.
And Ilya's saying, looks like it's okay to prototype iOS apps on Windows Target. And the answer is, in general, yes.
Yes, in general. Watch out, though, when you start using iOS-only sensors. For instance, what could it be? The orientation sensors, possibly. Location will work if you have a GPS or fake the location using, what is that location thing we have on on
GeoSense
Windows.
for Windows?
GeoSense for Windows, thank you. Motion sensor, accelerometers, those kind of things, they will not work on Win32 unless you have maybe a tablet like a Samsung Slate.
Or if you have a camera built in, then the camera component.
Or Surface Pro maybe.
And there's the lower level platform services interfaces where you can query what services are available. Is there a mouse? Is there dialogues? Is there menus? You can go after devices and you can see if you got the device. You can ask for a camera device, and if there's one, you get it.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly what you're supposed to do, and then you can disable those things that depend on it and on the other targets.
And if you use a T-switch component, that works. It works on iOS and it has the look of the switch component for on-off. And on Windows, it's a switch or almost like a checkbox, and there's an on switch. The only difference between on checkbox or on click of something, on switch or T-switch has an on switch event as well.
Yeah.
And if you bring up your welcome page, I don't know if you've closed your it's still there. You can just click it. One way to start in XZ4, go to Start Here. Is a good way when you first get XZ4 is just go through these videos and open the project. So down below there's location. Anders recorded all these videos of some of the code snippets, and you can click on the open project right in the IDE. It'll load the project. He did the audio rec play, the share sheet, all of these kinds of things. It just loads it up for you. You can watch the video right in place in the welcome page. It's a YouTube video, and it'll just play in there. You can watch it. You can open the project. You can be watching the video while you're in the IDE opening the project. There are many other code snippets that show you functionality, some of which Al showed you today, Marco talked about. So there, you're right in there. Watch the video, switch back to the project, to the source code editor, and so on. And you're probably not getting output audio, but it's got audio.
Yeah, my speakers are muted.
And this page is going to be updated all the time. It's actually an external page that's loaded as part of the welcome page on the Start Here button.
Yep.
If you don't want to see that one, click projects or whatever. If you close the welcome page, you can reopen it with view welcome page. So,
it's actually already changed since launch. It has the see more snippets down here, and it loads the entire page.
So we'll be updating this all the time, and all the sample apps, all the code snippets are in SourceForge, and you can go to RAD Studio XZ4 on SourceForge, and you can even do file open project from version control and open them right from SourceForge. But they're also ones that ship with the product are included in the user's public documents, RAD Studio 11.0 samples folder, and you'll see them all there. So lots of things to get you going and help. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Let's see if there's any left. Do we need to do something in code? Switch the form from designed iOS, designed for Windows form. The designer lets you do orientation switches, but if you're on iOS or Android, on iOS or Windows, it's up there. You can move things over. Use layouts, use layouts and anchors. And you see Anders, he's chosen iPad as the device, and then he's orienting it differently. So all of that's built in the designer.
And you see that the anchors are making it do the right thing here.
Yep. He's got the buttons anchored and so on.
iPhone 5.
Yep. So use layouts, use anchors.
Yep.
And then when you do the orientation, you can also query and see what you're on. You can write ifdef code. You can say ifdef iOS. You can say ifdef Windows, ifdef OS 10. You can also just query the TOS version record structure that'll tell you what chip you're on, what operating system you're on. So you can write either ifdef or runtime code to do different things. And again, you can see all that in the designer. So there's lots of support that way, and lots of code snippets and demos help you. And the snippets and demos are way down somewhere in the, he'll get there. 11.0, samples, yep. And so there's iOS code snippets. Those are lots of different ones, and we'll keep adding to them. And then there's also some samples, FireMonkey samples. So here's the one that gives you information about the device you're running on. Yeah. So again, there's record structure called OS version, and there's all the platform service interfaces where you can query every kind of interface. And here's the example where it's just dumping out what you're running on. So all of that examples to help you get going on Windows and Mac. Okay. And Ilya's saying starting demos from Start Here on the welcome page is awesome. Yeah, no, that was to help get everybody who's new either to Delphi or new to iOS with Delphi to get going quickly. and we'll watch Anders bring that up. And otherwise, we know we've run over. It used to be that Delphi Direct each week was 2 hours. We're trying to get it down to an hour, but this is all so new and fun that we wanted to make sure that you got it all. So here, Anders is just showing that device information app. And there it is.
There we go.
So it's just giving information. And there's another app that'll go through all the interfaces to tell you that you've got accelerometers, orientation sensors, on whatever platform and device that you're running on. So
Yeah, I have no idea if this is going to work, but let's give it a shot.
yeah, sure. Hit run. It should. I would think of it. Oh, no. Okay.
Got errors. Because it's tied directly to that.
Oh, that
to
one
iOS.
to iOS. Okay. But you can if-def and write it so that it's using all the right underpinnings.
This is a device-dependent demo.
Okay, everyone. Oh, let me take control again and just at the other Anders. Here we go. And yes. And show my screen. And just a reminder, you can email at any time developerdirect.online@embarcadero.com. And it'll get to all of us globally, all the different Developer Direct team members around the world. And some of the people in our sales organization, we all will just answer the ones that we can, or we'll all answer you multiple times. Next week is from desktop to multi-device user experience and beyond. So a lot about some of the things you were talking about is what do I do on Mac, what do I do on Windows, what do I do on iOS as it relates to laying out my user interface and having a great user experience with native code on all of that. And then the other topics along the way. I put the wrong next week. Oh, that was this week. Okay. And then see you next week on May 3rd. I'll be on a plane back from London. So it'll be Anders and Al next Friday for you here in US and Canada and whoever else is on. And maybe they'll have some other special guests. Maybe bring Dave Wilhelm over or something like that. Might be cool.
Yeah.
Show them the states and capitals example.
This is a completely open format. We can grab anyone we want, as long as they have time, of course.
Yeah. And I'll see everybody back on May 10th. David I here. Special offer, go to the RAD offer page, introductory 10% discount above and beyond whatever the price is, depending on what you're upgrading from. But you must purchase by May 22nd to get that additional, that 10% discount off of the new user or upgrade price and so on. We did that. Thanks, everybody. And this is some resources, the same ones from before. You can see those in the replays. But lots, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter as a company. And you just go to blogs.embarcadero.com. You'll see the latest articles. Sometimes they're in Russian, sometimes they're in Spanish, sometimes they're in English, either US English or English. And here's our email addresses. So A. Olson, Al Manarino, that's with 2 N's, 1 R. I always make that mistake, Al. Sorry.
3 N's.
Well, there's 3 N's, but 2 in a row. Sorry. That's like one guy said there were 5 compilers in RAD Studio exe4, and there really are 8 compilers. There's 5 Delphi compilers and 3 C++ compilers. So for the price of RAD Studio Pro and above, you get 8 compilers. That's pretty cool.
There you go.
That's a lot of compilers. Well worth it. And it's FireMonkey 3 across all the platforms. So if you're doing Windows, you get FireMonkey 3. If you're doing VCL, you still get all the low-level platform services, sensor access, device access, all of that that's in the system unit is framework agnostic. So you have access to use it in all of your Delphi and C++ applications, whether they're FireMonkey or not. Then if it's FMX dot or VCL dot, then you know it's framework-specific functionality about that. Okay, everyone, and that's that. There's the product pages, but everybody knows it. You'll notice the product pages now have a more developer-focused look. Let's see if I bring up this one, what happens. Oh, I don't want to go to Mozilla, but I'll go to Embarcadero and see that each product has its own focused on the developer banner. I blogged about that on Monday. So if we go to C++, this one I really like. You engineer the apps of the future enterprise. The C is the Starship, gives you all she's got, and there should be a picture of Scotty from maybe. And let's see, Troy says, thank you for keeping Delphi updating. We're absolutely moving Delphi forward. C++, we're moving that forward along the C++ 11 standard. They had a meeting last week in Bristol, UK. But we're also adding extensions to support all this on-device rapid prototyping with components. and component development and hooking into Windows, hooking into the platform services underneath. So we're moving both languages forward as fast as humanly possible, and more to come. Okay, everyone, with that, we'll leave it back with that reminder there, maybe. And David saying the websites are greatly improved, less clutter. Yes, a lot of the links that were on the right-hand side, they're at the bottom. So if you're looking for fact sheet and data sheet and feature matrix and so on, you'll see down at the bottom product information, data sheet, feature matrix, what's new, FAQ, and so on. Those used to be cluttering up everything else. So yeah, it's much simpler, cleaner. There's also these buttons along the top here that'll give you some of the functionality, like recent videos, special offers, and so on. There, it's very simple that way. And the rest of the information you'll find is all down here at the bottom of each product page. All right. So that's what's happening here. And again, thank you. We'll see you all. We'll see you all next week. And get to XE4 or do the instant trial, or download the full trial and install it. Both of them are Architect Edition 30-day trial. So if you're not ready and you want to see how to do it all, you can do iOS development from the trial. Just make sure you have a Macintosh and a device, or use the simulator. And again, that get start here video will help guide you to get started. Okay, everyone. Again, thank you, Al. Thank you, Anders.
Thank you.
And Marco
Right,
said
thank you all.
Marco said he was.
Thank you all.
Al, go ahead.
No, I just said thank you all for attending, and everyone have a great day.
And Al and Anders, you guys have a great time next Friday while I'm on the plane back.
Our pleasure.
We'll try to make sure that you have Wi-Fi on the plane. Just kidding.
Or maybe I can do a little video of something I'm doing in Denmark or London next week and send along to you guys.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, take care, everybody. See you next Friday.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.